Existence is a weight that either crushes you or becomes the floor beneath your feet. Most men spend their lives suffocating under the pressure of their own potential, gasping for air while drowning in the shallow waters of comfort. You feel it right now. A tightness in your chest, a dull heat behind your eyes, the corrosive realization that you have been a spectator in your own life. This is the physiological signature of a man who has lost his sovereignty. Your heartbeat is erratic because you lack a rhythm of your own making. Your skin feels tight because you are outgrowing the small, weak version of yourself that you have tolerated for too long. This discomfort is not an enemy. It is a signal. It is the internal alarm alerting you that the person you are currently inhabiting is a prison. You have spent years negotiating with your own laziness, and every time you compromised, you traded a piece of your power for a moment of relief. Now you are bankrupt. You are standing at the edge of the abyss, looking at the man you could have been, and the gap between you is a valley of fire. Be warned. The path I am laying out is not paved with affirmations or gentle reminders. It is a descent into the furnace. To become the architect of your own destiny, you must first become the executioner of your current identity. The price of your new life is your old one. You will lose the warmth of the crowd. You will lose the hollow validation of people who only love you because you are as mediocre as they are. You must be willing to burn your bridges while you are still standing on them. If you are looking for a safety net, leave now. This is for the man who is ready to kill the boy. This paralysis you feel is not an accident. It is the result of a lifelong conditioning process designed to keep you predictable. From the moment you entered a classroom, you were taught that obedience is virtue and that isolation is punishment. You were programmed to seek safety in numbers. Evolutionary pressure once told your ancestors that being cast out of the tribe meant death. But in the modern world, the tribe is no longer a source of survival. It is a source of sedation. Your brain is still running on ancient software that fears the silence of the dark, keeping you tethered to the glow of your phone and the noise of the masses. You have been socialized to believe that being liked is a form of security. Machiavelli saw through this delusion centuries ago. He understood that the man who seeks to be loved is at the mercy of those who love him, but the man who is feared through his own absolute consistency is the master of his environment. You are not weak by nature. You are weak by habit. You have allowed the world to install its limitations into your mind, and you have mistaken those limitations for your personality. It is time to uninstall the virus. Phase 1. The architecture of the void. Niccolo Machiavelli wrote that a prince must have no other objective or other thought, or take anything as his art, except war and its rules and discipline. Your war is not with an external army. It is with the noise of the world. The average man is a leaking bucket. He cannot have a thought without broadcasting it. He cannot have a goal without seeking the immediate, cheap dopamine of public approval. He announces his new diet, his new business, his new philosophy, and in the act of telling, he convinces his brain that he has already achieved the result. He releases the tension required for the work before the work has even begun. You must do the opposite. You must enter the void. Silence is the first weapon of the sovereign. When you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim your energy. When you stop posting your progress, you force the pressure to build internally until the only way to release it is through massive action. This is the mechanism of the pressure cooker. By sealing the lid and turning up the heat, you transform raw materials into something substantial in a fraction of the time. Most men are open pots, letting all their steam escape into the air, wondering why they never reach a boil. You must become a ghost in your own life. Disappear from the social circuits. Stop responding to texts that do not serve the mission. Let people wonder if you are angry, if you are depressed, or if you have simply vanished. Their confusion is your shield. When you work in total darkness, you are immune to the opinions of the spectators. You are building a foundation that no one can criticize because no one can see it. Imagine a predator in the high grass. It does not growl. It does not announce its hunger. It simply moves. This is the energy you must cultivate. When you go silent, you stop being a target and start being a shadow. This silence creates a psychological vacuum that others will desperately try to fill. They will project their own insecurities onto your quietness. They will ask you what is wrong. They will try to pull a reaction out of you to prove that they still have a grip on your emotions. Do not give it to them. Your refusal to engage is a display of superior rank. It is the discipline of the ghost. You are not hiding because you are afraid. You are hiding because you are lethal. In this 6-month blackout, you are not just working. You are undergoing a molecular shift. You are cutting the ties to the cheap dopamine that has kept your brain soft. You are killing the need to be seen. When you finally re-emerge, you do not need to announce your arrival. Your presence will be heavy. Your eyes will be steady. Your posture will tell the story of a man who has mastered the art of being alone. Phase 2. The alchemy of the internal machine. There is a common delusion that the disciplined man is a person who has found a way to love the struggle. This is a fairy tale for the weak. The man of power does not love the pain. He simply does not acknowledge its right to stop him. He is an alchemist. Alchemy is the ancient art of transmuting base metals into gold. In the psychology of power, this means taking the leaden weight of your resistance and turning it into the fuel for your execution. Machiavelli observed that a ruler must be prepared to vary his conduct as the winds of fortune and the changing circumstances of life require. This applies to your internal weather. Your emotions are not your masters, they are your subjects. And sometimes the subjects must be suppressed for the sake of the kingdom. You have been a slave to the how I feel protocol. You wake up, you check your internal temperature, and you decide your output based on whether you feel motivated. This is the strategy of a victim. Motivation is a chemical accident. It is a flickering candle in a hurricane. You cannot build an empire on an accident. You need a reactor that runs on nuclear waste. You need to learn to use your negative states as a battery. When you are angry, you do not scream. You work with a terrifying, cold precision. When you are tired, you do not rest. You move with a deliberate, slow intensity that proves to your nervous system who is in charge. This is the tactic of sensory decoupling. You decouple the physical sensation of fatigue or boredom from the motor response of your body. Consider the difference between the common reaction and the Machiavellian response. The common man feels the sting of a setback and retreats to his bed, scrolling through a screen to numb the feeling of failure. He negotiates with the alarm clock, granting himself 5 more minutes of pathetic comfort. The Machiavellian man feels the same sting, but he uses the cortisol spike to sharpen his focus. He treats the alarm clock like a command from a superior officer. He practices the 3-second rule. Between the impulse to quit and the act of quitting, there is a 3-second window where the mind attempts to negotiate. If you wait until the 4th second, you have already lost. The brain, in its primitive desire for survival, will always choose the path of least resistance. You must bypass the negotiation entirely. 1, 2, 3, move. The body must move before the mind can protest. You are building a mind that is bulletproof because it is no longer connected to the fragile ego. Most people are stopped by a bruise to their pride. You, however, must become like a glacier. A glacier does not care about the temperature. It does not care about the obstacles in its path. It simply exists, and because it is massive and consistent, it eventually crushes everything it touches. This is the dark layer of the psyche. You are tapping into the Jungian shadow, the part of you that is aggressive, territorial, and relentless. You are not trying to be a good person in the way society defines it. You are trying to be an effective force. You are shedding the morality of the sheep to adopt the pragmatism of the wolf. To achieve this, you must undergo an ego death. You must destroy the part of you that craves sympathy. Sympathy is a sedative for losers. When you seek it, you are asking the world to agree with your excuses. You are showing your wounds so that people will give you permission to stop. A Machiavellian ruler hides his wounds. He knows that blood in the water only invites the sharks. Stand up straight. Control your breathing. If your world is collapsing, let it burn in silence while you build the next one. This is the standard of the absolute. You are no longer competing with other people. You are competing with the limit of human endurance. You are raising the floor of what you consider acceptable until your bad day is more productive than an average man's best year. Phase 3. The architecture of the absolute. To build an empire, you must first recognize that you are living in a landscape of ruins. Most men are content to crawl through the rubble of their potential, scavenging for the scraps of comfort that society throws them. They are terrified of the wind, terrified of the silence, and most of all, terrified of being alone. Machiavelli understood that a wise prince should rely on what is in his own power and not on what is in the power of others. You have spent your life outsourcing your stability to your friends, your family, and your digital distractions. You have become a psychic parasite, feeding on the presence of others because you cannot stand the sight of yourself in a quiet room. To become terrifyingly disciplined, you must weaponize isolation. You must enter the laboratory of the self, where there are no witnesses and no applause. Isolation is not a punishment, it is a filter. When you begin to ascend, the people around you will not cheer. They will claw at your ankles. Your growth is a silent indictment of their stagnation. When you stop drinking, the alcoholic feels judged. When you start working 14 hours a day, the lazy man feels attacked. They will use the language of concern to mask their sabotage. They will tell you that you have changed, that you are becoming cold, that you are losing your humanity. Understand this. They are not mourning you. They are mourning the version of you that made them feel okay about being losers. You must be willing to be the villain in their story. Machiavelli noted that it is much safer to be feared than loved, because love is held by a chain of obligation which, because men are wretched, is broken at every opportunity for their advantage. But fear preserves you by a dread of punishment which never fails. In your world, the punishment is your total indifference to their mediocrity. You must practice the technique of radical severance. This is the calculated removal of any social or environmental element that does not contribute to the mission's structural integrity. If a friendship is a leak in your time, plug it. If a relationship is a weight on your ambition, cut the rope. This is ruthless, and it is necessary. You are not here to be a nice guy. You are here to be a sovereign. When you stand alone, you find the floor of your own soul. You discover what you are actually capable of when there is no one there to catch you. This is where the ego dies and the ruler is born. You find that the anxiety you've felt your whole life was actually the sound of your potential screaming for room to breathe. By clearing the space around you, you allow that potential to expand until it fills the vacuum. Phase 4. The strategy of the implacable. Predictability is the precursor to defeat. When people can predict your reactions, they can control you. If they know that a certain insult will make you angry, they own your peace of mind. If they know that a certain amount of pressure will make you quit, they own your future. You must become a glitch in their expectations. The disciplined man does not react. He responds, or better yet, he simply continues. This is the concept of tactical nullification. You neutralize the emotional hooks that others try to sink into you by remaining as cold and as steady as stone. When a crisis hits, while others are frantic and bleeding, you are analyzing the data. When someone attempts to manipulate you, you look through them as if they were made of glass. This lack of emotional volatility is terrifying to the average person. It signals a level of self-mastery that they cannot comprehend. Machiavelli advised that a leader should always be a great asker and a patient hearer of the truth. Apply this to your discipline. Stop lying to yourself about why you aren't where you want to be. The truth is that you have been soft. You have been a consumer instead of a creator. You have been a slave to the dopamine loop. To break this, you must set standards that are absolute. The absolute standard is a floor that never moves, regardless of the weather, your health, or your heartbreak. If your standard is to wake up at 4 in the morning, you wake up at 4 in the morning, even if the house is on fire. You do not negotiate with the circumstances. By becoming mechanical in your consistency, you become inevitable. You are no longer a person trying to achieve a goal. You are a force of nature moving toward a destination. This is the death of the old self. You are shedding the skin of the boy who needed permission. You are killing the version of you that cared about being understood. The world does not need to understand you. It only needs to acknowledge the results you produce. You are building a fortress of habit that is so thick, no external force can penetrate it. You are becoming the man who scares them, not because you are loud, but because you are silent, consistent, and completely outside of their control. You have paid the tax of isolation. You have endured the furnace of the internal machine. Now you stand at the threshold of total sovereignty. The only question remains: are you prepared to live with the power you have summoned? Phase 5. The mandate of the predator. You must realize that most of the world is designed to keep you sedated. We live in an era of digital opium. You have food delivered to your door, 1,000 movies at your fingertips, and the ability to simulate intimacy through a glass screen. This is not progress, it is a cage. Society prefers you soft, distracted, and predictable because a man who is addicted to comfort is a man who is easily managed. To be truly disciplined in this environment is more than a lifestyle choice. It is an act of total insurrection. You are declaring war on the very fabric of modern existence. You must learn to view luxury as a toxin. Machiavelli observed that empires rot from within long before they are conquered from without. They lose their edge in the pursuit of pleasure. They forget the iron that built their foundations. You cannot afford to forget. You must purposefully introduce friction into your life. Seek the cold, seek the hunger, seek the exhaustion. When you intentionally choose the difficult path, you are hardening your spirit against the inevitable storms of fortune. The strategy you must adopt is the doctrine of artificial scarcity. Even when you have plenty, you act as though you have nothing. You guard your time as if you were on your deathbed. You treat your focus as if it were your last drop of water in a desert. This creates a level of intensity that others will find disturbing. They will ask why you are so obsessed. They will ask why you cannot just relax. They will try to convince you that balance is the key to a happy life. Balance is a lie told by the stagnant to justify their lack of momentum. There is no balance in greatness. There is only obsession and the wreckage left behind. You must become a specialist in the extreme. By pushing yourself to the outer limits of what is possible, you occupy a space where there is no competition. The average man cannot breathe the air at your altitude. He will get dizzy. He will make excuses. He will descend back to the safety of the herd. Let him go. Your goal is not to lead the sheep. It is to transcend the field entirely. Phase 6. The final shedding. This is the moment of the funeral. You are standing over the grave of the man you were yesterday. That version of you, the one who procrastinated, the one who needed a pat on the back, the one who was wounded by a stranger's opinion, is dead. You must not mourn him. You must not carry his memory like a holy relic. If you do not fully commit to the death of your old self, he will haunt your new life like a ghost, whispering doubts into your ear during the moments when you are most vulnerable. Machiavelli stated that there is no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others. If you do not finish the execution of your weak self today, he will gather his strength and strike you when you are tired. Be ruthless. Burn the journals of your failures. Delete the contacts of those who knew you when you were small. Change the way you walk, the way you breathe, and the way you look into the eyes of others. The new version of you is not a human being in the traditional sense. You are a system of high-performance protocols. You operate on the logic of the result. When you walk into a room, you do not seek attention. You radiate authority. You have nothing to prove because your existence is the proof. This is the ultimate freedom that Machiavelli hinted at, the freedom of the man who has conquered his own internal resistance. You are no longer a victim of the world's whims. You are the architect of your own reality. People will fear you because they cannot find your off switch. They will see a man who does not stop, who does not complain, and who does not negotiate. You have become an inevitability. You are the shadow in the grass, the glacier on the mountain, the iron in the foundation. The world is soft, but you are hard. The world is loud, but you are silent. If you have stayed with me until the end, you have already felt the shift. The old excuses no longer taste the same. The comfort you once craved now feels like a layer of filth on your skin. You are ready to enter the cold path. But understand this, there is no return journey. Once you see the world through the lens of power and discipline, the illusions of the masses are shattered forever. You are now part of the few who choose the struggle over the sedation. This is a lonely road, but it is the only one that leads to the throne. If you are ready to pay the price, if you are ready to be the villain in their story so you can be the hero in yours, then prove it. The time for talking is over. The time for being seen is finished. The void is waiting for your work. I choose the cold path. Subscribe only if you are prepared to destroy who you are, to become what you must be. The hunt begins now.